And many of the hadiths about the end times are precisely about scholars who don't practice what they preach. Quran reciters who magnificently project their voices but inwardly are like ruins. One of the signs of the end times is this imbalance, excessive externalism particularly, which we see around us all the time. The obsession with outward things, or manipulating the fiqh in order to turn it into a vehicle for expressing one's own anger. Something like suicide bombing would be an expression of that. Without precedent in our tradition, but we're so externalized, angry, using religion as a megaphone for our own internal twists and turns and resentment and frustration, that we end up doing something that makes the whole world want to run away from Tawheed. It's that imbalance. So he goes through these things, and then halfway through the book, he comes to a little book which we often think is not central because it's short. It begins with the book of knowledge and ends with the book of death and what comes after. That's obvious. But each part of this, the combinations are in order, and the middle of it, book 20, is strategically very important. This is where he moves away from practical things, external things, not just the prayer and the fast, but how you travel, how you marry, and so forth, and moves into the internal discussion of the understanding of tawakkul, the understanding of tawheed, the understanding of mahabba, of rida, of uns, of shawq, of all of those things, and then eventually the remembrance of death. At the watershed moment in the Ihya, between the outward and the inward, he places the chosen one, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It's often said that the Ihya is Islam's greatest book of tafsir, because at the beginning of each section he gives the relevant Quranic verses. So if you rearrange them, and I guess nowadays with a word processor you could do it pretty quickly, if you rearrange them in the order of the surahs and the ayahs, you get the greatest ever book of tafsir. But it also should be said that it is the greatest profound commentary on the seerah. And the commentaries on the seerah, that's a genre that we haven't looked at enough. The seerah was written originally from a historian's perspective, and what it contains mainly is the battles, the marriages, outward things. The inward things are in a different kind of genre, which we don't look at so often. Qadi Ayad does it brilliantly in his Kitab al-Shifa, but somehow we've separated those two dimensions of the prophetic excellence, which is unfortunate, since the obligatory prayer is guide us in the straight path, the balanced path, istiqamah, between two extremes or imbalances. And so what Imam al-Ghazali is doing at the center, as it were the fulcrum, the balance point of the whole Ihya, you're going to keep these outward things in balance with these inward things and be a real Muslim. It's to do with the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his adab. We mentioned that this word adab is about balance. You can pray following all the rules, but with really bad adab. And you sometimes see people doing that. They go into the mosque and they look angry. They look around to see who's there. They're frowning. And they stand up defiantly. Who are they defying? It's not quite clear, but they're kind of angry. They put their hands like that, frowning and scowling, and they're very conscious of whoever is next to them. No doubt they're following all of the rules, but it's a strange way to submit lovingly to the Lord of the worlds. It's some strange psychic turbulence that's been introduced into Allah's house. You can do that. Inwardly, there's all kinds of people who think, oh, I have a rich spiritual life, but I'm not religious. Hear that a lot nowadays. Often in communities which are horrified by the activities of religious extremists, so they throw the baby out with the bathwater and they think, I'm not going to pray, fast, etc. There's a lot of that as well. Usually the people who claim loudest the mantle of da'wah are the people who are most effective in calling people away from Islam. This is something that we see, unfortunately, a lot and more of. So that imbalance is there, but the adab is just another way of talking about balance, really. That subtle thing that keeps the two sides, the two palms of the scale in balance. It's to do with beauty, subtlety, perception, wisdom. You have to use your brain in order to get the apples to balance with the weights. And you have to use in terms of your own inward and outward. You have to use everything that is best about you. Your full humanity has to be engaged. So Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullahi alayhi, puts the Holy Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam at the center point, the balancing point, the fulcrum of his Ihya Ulum ad-Din. He is the barzakh, the isthmus, the uniting principle between inward and outward. If it had only been outward, he wouldn't have melted the hearts of the wild Arabs. Not possible. If it had only been inward, he wouldn't have reformed their ways. There would have been no sharia, no boundaries, no hudud, no prayer, nothing. He was both. He is the meeting point of the two oceans. And Imam al-Ghazali, throughout the Ihya, if we're going to follow this idea that the whole thing is a commentary on the seerah, he's not going to tell you details about a particular battle, or that's not the inner meaning of it all. He's talking about the perfection of humanity, the Adamic form that is reclaimed more perfectly by the Holy Prophet ﷺ than by any other entity in time and space. Perfect balance. Everything in creation as tending towards the service and the honoring of the being towards whom even the angels could bow, the entity who is called Khalifa, that Allah has appointed by His own command to be the Khalifa of the heavens and the earth. And the entity which is human beings, إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. We are tyrants and ignorant. That's what we are in our essential nature most of the time. But also we can become ahsani taqweem, the best of forms, the best of formings, which is, that ayah really is about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The balance of the inwards and the outwards, the balance of the rigor and the beauty, the balance of the justice and the mercy, the balance of this life and the next life, the balance of family and world and ibadah. All of that balance is to be found in the perfect adab with the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is why he has this title, which is the qualities of prophethood and the courtesies of life, ma'isha. Why is he talking about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Not in terms of his shafa'ah or the first of creation or whatever, but in terms of ma'isha, ordinary life. Because Imam al-Ghazali is very concerned with Islam not as a kind of abstract philosophy, but as a kind of practical wisdom for what we do in our quotidian, ordinary lives. In every moment, every second is a precious thing. The clock ticks and that second won't ever come back again. We all know, we've never seen a clock going that way. It only goes that direction. That's the iron grip of dahar in which we all find ourselves. In every one of those seconds, if we're conscious and alive rather than just daydreaming, we can decide things. We can say, I will do this or I will do that. There's always a possible decision in any conscious moment. The Holy Prophet ﷺ shows us how to take conscious decisions that will enhance our journey towards Adamic perfection, what we are called to be, the ahsani taqweem. Every conformity to the sunnah in a spirit of balance and wisdom is a move towards that. And every choice in that split-second decision towards the self, towards the nafs, towards ego, towards Fir'aun, towards Iblis, is a step away from that and towards the imbalance and uproar of the infernal